Welcome back. We're unpacking some recent research produced by Leger Polling and commissioned by secondstreet.org. And joining me to unpack that all is Colin Craig, who is the president of secondstreet.org. Thanks again, Colin, for joining me. So let's get into some of the minutia and some of the data, because I find this very interesting and I love data analysis. So looking to see, for the general question, is the school system headed in the wrong direction? Is Canadians' education system in the wrong direction on nearly all the statements regarding the public school system? Some things stand up. Discipline and accountability, that kind of peaked very highly, that people think that's very problematic.
Yeah, for sure. When you talk to all Canadians, they'll tell you that when it comes to discipline and accountability, the school system has gone in the wrong direction. 63% of all Canadians say that. If you just talk to Canadians who think the system has gone in the wrong direction, well, they're really concerned about this. They will tell you that 82% of them will say that that's a big problem with the system. So some examples of this, Tanya, are things like not failing students. And I think what's important to think about is when you have a student who's not learning what they need to succeed in life and you just pass them, well, then you're creating a bigger and bigger problem, because if they don't learn these skills, then they can't build on top of it and on top of it. If you think about a subject like math, right? So that was one major concern. We talked to one
and
parent
let me just talk about that actually
that,
just for a moment. So about that, like, some of our viewers may not be aware, but it is actually common practice in Canadian public schools to just pass a child through, that there's no more failing a student like many of us experienced or may have witnessed when we were children. So that's a phenomenon. And I agree, I think it sets up a student for failure because they're not going to be able to build on that foundation.
Yeah, I don't think you're really helping the student if they're not learning what they need in order to succeed, if they can't read and write properly, if they don't know mathematics well to maybe go on to college or university or something else, even just basic math that we use day in and day out. It's important to understand how it works. And if you're not learning those skills and you're just getting shuffled along through the system, well, then you're creating a bigger problem.
And clearly 63%, as we said, of all Canadians are concerned about that. And it's pretty unanimous across about the same, right, in the 60s. Atlantic Canada, 72%. That's quite high. What else stands out with you from this research here, from all Canadians?
Well, there's a lot of frustration, Tanya, when it comes to the priorities that schools are setting in terms of what they're teaching kids. A lot of people feel that they're just not prioritizing what kids need to learn. So things like mathematics, as we just talked about, reading, writing, science, those types of skills and knowledge that are important to succeed in life. So there were a lot of concerns about that. It was about Canadians responded that 50% responded that they felt that when it came to setting those priorities, schools were going in the wrong direction.
Right.
And only about 26% said right direction. So by a 2-to-1 margin, this is a pretty significant gap there. Canadians feel that the school system really isn't prioritizing what's important.
Yes, and we might unpack that in the next segment of so what specific things they're concerned about. How about report cards? I hear this often. People want to shift from a grading to more just a pass and needs improvement, because again, no more failure. What do Canadians think about how students are adjudicated?
Yeah, and this is a tricky one, because in different parts of the country, they will sometimes use different formats for reporting on student progress. So British Columbia, for example, they've moved now away from letter grades at, I believe it's the grades 1 to 6 level.
Okay.
And they're now using words and language to describe things like, meeting expectations, rather than saying, well, they got a B. That's not the exact term, but it's that kind of a concept that they're now shifting towards. And when you ask the question nationwide, it's about 42% of Canadians say wrong direction, whereas 26% say right direction. And then the rest just simply don't know. So again, you're seeing more people who are concerned with changes to report cards and how student assessment is being reported.
And also how the subjects are taught, as you mentioned again, I believe you mentioned this, or maybe I read it in your research, but the concept of discovery math, or we have sometimes racially charged mathematics classes, if you will. We hear a lot of history coming into math. I think we're just talking about numbers.
Yeah, I think you're old school like me. I mean, we tend to think mathematics is just kind of a pretty basic skill that's important to know and understand, and it's a life skill, and it's not really charged ideologically either way. But some people want to, impose all kinds of other theories as to what math really is all about. But anyway, when it comes to how it's being taught, again, we find some frustration among Canadians.
Okay,
It's
well, we're going
about,
to pick this up in just a moment when we come back from this commercial break.
okay.